Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new part of the Reject Bread and Circuses project I've been trying to do. This will be known as the gold standard, where I talk to people who've been very influential in my life and have been doing some impressive things over the past few years. Today, I'd like to welcome my very good friend Azim Alam, who we've just discussed. I think we've known each other for nearly 20 years now, so I'm very grateful to have you, for all those years. And he's done a lot of work in loads of different aspects of his life, and in lots of areas of things that you won't really expect to be kind of together. So yeah, Azim, welcome. And just
thank you very much, Parag. It's an honor to be here, and what a delightful 20 years it's been so far.
Probably a bit more delightful for me than you, I feel. But but yeah, once again, thank you very much for coming on. And yeah, just if you want to have a quick minute introduction. I know you're a man of many talents, so I think a minute might be a bit too short for you.
That's very kind. Thank you. Yeah, sure. So for those of you who don't know me, my name's Azim. As Parag said, we've known each other for a long time, all the way back to right at the start of secondary school. When I left school, I studied medicine. So I did medicine in London, graduated as a doctor about 5 years ago now, worked as a doctor for a couple of years. Then spent a few years out of medicine altogether. So I moved over to LA, so the States, and worked in the music industry there for a while. Then came back mainly because of the pandemic, started a tech company with a few friends of mine, scaled that during the pandemic, and moved myself into kind of the health tech and digital health space. So working as a doctor, but building new technology and products to kind of impact patients at scale. And now I kind of juggle three things, which is kind of working as a clinician, working in the tech space and the business, and then, writing music on the side as well, which I've continued since returning. So a weird and wonderful career, I guess, so far.
100%. And it's, all our discussions we've had have been very, obviously I love hearing different things from different parts of it. So it's very nice to, kind of seeing how it all, these different strands have been working. And I think one thing imagine some are more successful sometimes. I imagine some are maybe a bit, you tick over and then you see the success. So I imagine that's probably is that something that happens quite a lot?
Yeah, I think in kind of whatever strand of work that I've been in so far, it's been a very gradual process. And I've never done anything to try and really gain success. It's more just doing things that I've enjoyed. So in the music world, I started writing songs when I was about 11 years old, and turns out I was relatively good at it and kind of stumbled down that route, and same with kind of tech and building businesses and things like that. These are things that I just happened to enjoy, and a lot of friends around me enjoyed those things as well. And kind of, I guess, there's this concept of passion, which I find very interesting, but what tends to happen is you find things you enjoy you are often at least mildly good at, and the better you become at something, the more success it breeds, the more it feels like a passion. So I guess that's how I've figured things out along the way.
That's a very good way of looking at it, actually. Yeah, that's something I felt as well. Let's say I've had, personal development, mental strands of things going on. Let's say physical health, mental health, things like the reading, meditation, and I think there's a lot of people who are in this the kind of more personal development space where they are doing these multiple things, and over time they start difficult and they become that passion, don't they, over time. You really enjoy maybe getting a book out in the sun rather than putting a TV on. That's something definitely I do. I really enjoy going to the gym and going for my runs nowadays. I think they always start, maybe you do it that little at the start, you really don't enjoy it, but then over time, because then you finally see the results, and that just spirals up and up and up, which I think it's very important to see.
Yeah, for sure.
So let's go back to starting your business. I remember we had a good conversation literally just before pandemic, I remember. And was the business idea, was it something that's been brewing, let's say, obviously you started 3 years ago, shall we say? Did it start, let's say, just before the pandemic, or has it been something that's been brewing for a while, in your mind?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it's been pretty much a whirlwind over the last 3 years. So as you say, it started right at the peak of the pandemic. So I landed back from LA, and the business, we basically started at that point. The concept, I'll just explain to the listeners and viewers, is essentially the business has two arms of the company. One is in the education technology space, and one is in the healthcare technology space. So when I was at medical school, we found a lack of good resources for healthcare students who are trying to learn, get through medical school, whether that is question banks, online textbooks, videos, video libraries, lectures, etc. So we wanted to basically create a one-stop shop for all of those resources and one dedicated platform. So kind of just before the pandemic, I'd say probably when I moved to the States, whilst working in music, I brought a few friends together remotely, and we said, let's try and build this platform ourselves. COVID happened, unfortunately, but for the business, it worked well in terms of the fact that medical students and doctors across the country who were sitting exams suddenly either had those cancelled or people were stuck at home without those resources. So we started running lectures and webinars and quite crude and relatively simple solutions to the problem of a lack of resources, to the point where we were running webinars every single day during the pandemic, at least 5 days a week, and there were several thousand students attending those webinars from across the globe. So whether that's the UK or the US or Madagascar or South Korea, it was a pretty incredible experience.
Right, that's a very good service, I'd say. Obviously helping so many. Yeah, those 1,000 people, they probably helped 1,000 people themselves. So you're helping a lot of people out there, I feel. So very, very, very kind of grateful. I imagine a lot of people are grateful for your knowledge you spread and your team has spread, I'd say.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, as you say, as I mentioned, it was quite serendipitous how it all came about. Like the initial ideas were probably planted when I was working as a doctor, and I remember we were on doing a late night in the library, having a brainstorming session in the basement of the hospital. And then, flash forward 2 years later, it's the first business I've ever done, and we were outside that same hospital this year, on the way to the coronation, basically, because we were invited for the work we'd done for the business. And I think that was a real moment of reflection, thinking just a few years ago, a bunch of friends came together to try and build something, and then to be recognized in that way, it's been a real journey.
I can imagine, and honestly, very, very well deserved from everything I've seen online, with articles and LinkedIn or Instagram has been very good. Really good to see that progress.
Thank you.
So actually, that's one thing I released. A video I actually released was how you surround the people you surround yourself. That can affect how you act, your environment. And I think that's really as you say, it's really important that you surround yourself in. I mean, hopefully I'll be one of those people, but people that can help inspire you and push you to think new things. I say maybe it's very lucky that you had those doctors around you or your friends around you that you were able to do that. I think it's something I think people don't realize as much actually how the people they're around them, that you lead. If you surround yourself with those type of people, you end up obviously becoming like those people. And I feel that's obviously happened in your case, definitely big time there.
I think it makes such a massive difference, Parag. And I think, everyone calls it something different. Someone says, building a community around yourself, finding your tribe, you're the average of your 5 closest friends. Everyone says it in a slightly different way. But I think the overall sentiment is pretty clear in that you are really who you surround yourself with. And your everyone's friendship groups change over the years. But I guess in my experience, probably the friends, bar yourself and a couple of others from the early years of my life, the majority of close friends that I've developed have been from probably med school and beyond. And I think as my own views towards life and career and relationships, etc., have grown, you kind of just morph into you could call it an echo chamber, and that everyone seems to eventually have similar views. But similarly, it's kind of just a community of people that want good for one another. And if I didn't have those people in my life would look very different and probably very sad in a lot of respects. So I think it makes a massive difference, as you say.
No, 100%. Yeah, so that's one thing I'm very grateful for. A lot of people, I can look up to, ask them for advice. Yeah, there's also that kind of push. I think having those people that kind of everyone's a little bit not competing, but just everyone's pushing each other up. So you put that extra few more percent in. You maybe, today I was going to sit there and watch TV or something. Actually, I was going to read a bit more, listen to this seminar or podcast. I think that can really help you, and the conversations is a lot better as well. I think the conversation I've had a lot recently about the books I've read or this I've listened to or this thing, it's been really good. I think it definitely feels a lot more real than what was on TV or what was what this news or rumors or stuff like that or sports. It's been definitely a lot better. Yeah, one thing I know, obviously, this I imagine there's been some trade-offs, shall we say, with the success. As it obviously. I know running a business. I've got some family members who run businesses. It takes a lot of your time. I imagine a lot of that kind of brain power, kind of always in the back of your mind. I think it must be quite relentless. I feel as well. Obviously, has there been, let's say, some downside, shall we say, of the kind of running the business, especially at the start of a very successful business as well?
I think it's a real journey, and as you say, there are always going to be trade-offs to a degree. I think probably in the early year or and a half, maybe, or maybe even 2 years of starting the business, you're really trying to get your head around what your life even looks like. Because when you're running a business, it's not a 9 to 5. It's not being an employee. It's about taking risk, and you often everyone once again everyone calls it a different thing. Like some people call it agile working, some people call it choosing your own hours, whatever it may be. But because it's not a 9 to 5, you feel like you're working all the time. So you may be in an office, you may not, you may be working remotely, but your mind never switches off because you're always trying to build something. Maybe you're trying to find your first customer, maybe you're trying to find product market fit, maybe you're trying to build a team. But when your mind is never switching off, burnout will happen and you won't often notice it. And if you're not experienced burnout before, it will creep up on you. And it's happened to me numerous times over the years. It will creep up on you. And only when you start looking out for those signs can you actually stop it in its tracks and say, look, I need a break. And it's the constant context switching between, it's not just building a business. It's like, how does that business stay afloat? And once you start having employees and you start raising money and you have more responsibility, unless you can figure out how you're going to deal with constantly having your business in your mind and context switching and like work, sometimes before I go to bed, you'll get an idea and you'll want to start talking about it. And you have to force yourself to switch off. And I think that's only something I've figured out over the last kind of year and a half, is how to force yourself to relax and switch off. And there are lots of different ways to do that, because if you don't, you will keep burning out and nothing will be, you won't be any good for anyone.
100%. No, I think that's true. I think the signs are there. We also, a lot of times we don't want to realize it. I think, it's something I talked about, very luckily Movember shared my story the other day. So I mentioned, like those signs were there, maybe the low mood, motivation going up and down. Obviously this for depression, I imagine burnout, maybe something similar, your energy levels, things like that, your focus. I think the signs are there, but you just think, maybe that's just like, it's the off day. Yeah, okay, but but it's when there's something, that's an actual fact that, let's say, your energy levels, if they're going up and down, there's something wrong there, isn't it, really? Okay, well, yeah, that's good to know. I think that's the thing, is we need to see the trade-offs. A lot of things we do, I think something we don't think about. We just think, okay, they're great, instant rewards, or yes, we need to put the hours in, let's say, to get good at a skill, let's say painting or playing chess. But there's a lot of trade-off in even gaining that skill. Maybe you might have to say no to a lot of things. You can say yes to some things, but it's definitely can get difficult. I think sometimes, I imagine it's the same. Maybe you got to run around to a trade show or a presentation, and you've got to probably say yes and no to many social events, to late nights, early mornings, and things like that as well, I imagine.
Absolutely. And I think kind of linked to that is with the current generation that we all live in, where everyone is craving dopamine and serotonin constantly. We all get it from our phones at a flick of a button. You can open Instagram or TikTok and get a shot of dopamine. Running a business is very similar, because once you start, let's say you get your first customer, then you're like, okay, I'm going to celebrate again when I get my 10th customer, my 50th, my 100th. Whatever that metric is, you start chasing that dopamine. And it's very similar to getting addicted to your phone or getting addicted to anything. And once you start chasing those new highs, each high needs to be even greater than the last to fulfill that satisfaction. It's something that I've experienced. And that can be very detrimental to friendships, to relationships. You start, like you mentioned there, whether it's exercise, whether it's sleep, whether it's energy, you start realizing that the healthy habits you've once had, they start to slip away because you're just chasing the next high that you probably can't get from anywhere else, because it's this new type of satisfaction you probably haven't felt before. And that was a real experience for me, actually. No one's ever kind of taught me that or told me about that. I kind of had to, and a lot of the other co-founders as well on my team had to figure that out for themselves.
That's very interesting, because you're basically, it's effectively the success. It's coming from, it's a justified high, shall we say? It's not just a very, like you said, like the Instagram or TikTok highs. This is obviously you're putting in the effort to get it, but then maybe you're not looking and reflecting, see what works, see what doesn't. You maybe just go down a blind alley, and then I say might end up losing or not getting in, maybe getting those instant hit of your customers and numbers, but maybe in the long run that will affect you, as I say, because of burnout factors. Okay, that's actually very interesting. It's something I would never really thought of. But that's very good knowledge to think about for people out there, really. And then to end that note, as I say, thank you very much for this. I know, sorry, it's a bit abrupt ending, but
my pleasure.
Plus one more, just do one more kind of tip to help people out there with their mental, physical health, starting something new, starting a new business. I think it'd be really important to pass your knowledge on to them.
Yeah, I guess, and first of all, like, absolute pleasure for being a Parag. Thank you for inviting me. I guess there are two parts of that. You said kind of the business side and any general tips. I guess from business side of things, you have to, my first tip is probably just be more comfortable with taking risks. You don't need the best idea in the world. You don't need to try and change the world. If you have something that you think people would find value in, and it's not even starting a business, if it's starting an Instagram page like you have, Parag, it is, if people are going to find value in it, then success will eventually come. And I wouldn't worry too much about what the next day, week, month, year, decade is going to look like. It's just taking that first step. And linked with that in terms of habits is that, the evidence suggests to build any good habit or any habit, whether it's detrimental or good, takes, roughly 28 days. So if you can do something small every single day for 28 days, you're on the right track. And I think in terms of habits, like for me, I know when my mental health is taking a hit because my diet goes out the window, or I stop exercising a few times a week. Those are my two big metrics. And then I say, okay, look, I just need 28 days of doing this every day, even a small amount, to know that I'm back on the right track. And it's the same whether that's with a good habit or a bad one. Like, if you start drinking, like I don't drink alcohol that much anymore. I used to significantly more, but I know that if I start doing that every day or even every other day, that is a bad habit that is going to form over the next month. And when you're starting a business, if you can do something small every day for 28 days and then continue beyond that, that habit has been formed and success will come. It's just about perseverance.
100%. You've basically stolen my next video idea anyway. That's been on my mind.
Sorry about that, mate.
I'll get it out. I'll get it out at the same time as this. But no, it's very true. I think, definitely something small every day is the best way. And obviously from there, that chart just grows and grows. And then you look back, you're like, man, I'm at the top of the hill now. And carry on. But so
absolutely.
Once again, I'll say thank you so much. Thank you so much for the last 10, 15 minutes or so. And obviously thank you very much for the last 20 years nearly as well. So and hopefully 20 or so more, considering the habits we've changed ourselves.
Absolutely.
So thank you very much. And thank you all for listening. And any feedback would be great. Any comments, shares, please go ahead. So once again, thank you very much for Azim. And I hope to speak to you all soon. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thank you.